As far back as I can remember, I dreamt of a normal life. A life filled with normal things. A life where monsters don't live in closets or under the bed. A life where ghosts aren't real. I just wanted to be normal. But that didn't happen. It wasn't meant to be. Since my early 20s, I have experienced profound paranormal events that would change my life. Extreme poltergeist activity, living amongst those that have departed this earth in ways unimaginable. It has affected my loved ones and children with no end in sight. I could hear things, see things, and feel things not of this world. I asked myself if this was a gift or a curse. With the help of my mother and close friends, I emerged a paranormal investigator. Since 2013, I have been on a relentless journey to learn about the paranormal. This is my time to share my journey with you. Welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. Hello, and welcome to my Paranormal Soapbox. I'm your friendly neighborhood ghost hunter, Justin Brown, and allergies are still kicking my ass, and I'm sorry about that. It's making me sneeze, making me blow my nose, making me cough. So I'm going to do my best to, I got my mute button macroed to my keyboard, so if I have to do that, I will, so you won't go deaf. But thanks for joining me tonight. We have Jessica Bias and Derek Schreiner. Missy is tired. I wish I could have a fill-in on some nights, because I tell you what, I was tired today too. But Derek's going to be here helping the Facebook, moderate Facebook chat, and Jessica's going to be over there on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter or for some reason Twitch, and I don't see your comments, I apologize in advance. I'm going to try my hardest to moderate those. But we're going to be talking about something pretty debate-worthy today. We're going to be talking about Provoking, and this is episode 67, and I'm excited to introduce episode 67 and present it to you guys tonight. If you are first-time viewers of this show, this is how it works. If you want to ask me a question or ask Derek or Jess a question, just jot it down there in the comments and we'll get it to you as soon as possible. I usually ramble on about 10-15 minutes before we start going to the chat. So just be patient and they'll get to your question. We'll also engage in the comments and the conversation happening in the chat. And if you want to be shouted out during the stream, just make sure you type hi or something so we can see your name there in the chat. So are you guys ready? How are you guys doing?
I'm ready.
Missy's ready, or Jessica's ready. I can't think of your right name. I'm going to assume that
definitely ready.
Derek's definitely ready. Okay.
Sir, because you do that often.
Yeah, I do. I can't stop doing it.
I want to do it like, when I was a kid and my mom would be like, Jennifer, and you always knew your name was the last one and you were in trouble.
Oh, yeah. We always got you two, come here. So she didn't have to pick out one or the other. We both got it.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're going to start this off. Let's see here. Where do we start? Provoking. A lot of people have an opinion about Provoking, but my goal for today's live stream and show is to kind of open your mind and make you think about it a little bit differently, maybe in more ways than one. So we're just trying to provoke, no pun intended, some thinking. We're trying to be thought-provoking during the show. So here we go. Like I was going to start off, a lot of people have a general definition of what provoking is. Usually it's something you're trying to elicit response from someone, something, and usually it's in a mean way or in a disrespectful way, but it doesn't have to be. But when people generally use that word, that's how they use it. When you want to provoke someone, you're generally doing it in a forceful way or in a way that will elicit a response where you exhausted other ways to get or elicit a response before that point. So I think the spectrum of the definition and meaning of provoking is a lot wider than that. We'll talk about some examples of that, but we really want to answer whether it's a good thing to provoke or not, whether it be disrespectful intentionally or unintentionally, right? I think a lot of times when we go out and do our paranormal research, nothing's happening, we're sitting there, it's quiet, we're tired, we want things to happen, right? So we get impatient and we want, some interaction. So we try to do things to stimulate the environment. And let's just say most people try to be respectful, and they try to appeal to the vanity or to the emotional well-being of entities that could be in the environment, and they try to respectfully provoke them to interact with you. Like, for example, if they know that there's claims of a man who built this home and he loved the home, or maybe he built the home for his wife or his daughter or something like that, and the claims state that the ghosts that haunt the particular location you're in are still there. And the reason why they haven't crossed over or passed on is because they can't let go of the home, or the person who had the home built for them doesn't want to let the place go. So you kind of have to appeal to those things when you ask questions. You try to ask thought-provoking things, or you try to stimulate the environment by trying to relate to the spirits. That is a form of provocation. So it can be respectful, but your view of how respectful it is can differ from how the spirits or entities are receiving that information or perceiving what you're doing. Just your presence in the location can be disrespectful in their eyes. The fact that you're asking questions about something that's personal to them could be disrespectful. So that could be one of the main takeaways from this show, is the very fact that you are there trying to get responses can be you can create a negative environment and negative interaction between spirits and you and your team. We definitely want to talk about that, right? We definitely want to understand that, since we're being respectful, our intentions are being respectful, the opposite can be taking place. So how do you know if that's happening? Well, there's no physical way to know that. Maybe if you did a lot of research about the particular individuals that may or may not be haunting the location, maybe you can get an idea of how they are. Maybe that will help you. Or maybe some other investigators said, we went in there, we asked some questions, try to be respectful, but we got some kind of negative interaction. Maybe that type of research and homework that you would do before your investigation can kind of help you or give you an idea of how the entities interact with you, depending on what you're doing. Maybe, like I said, just being there, infuriates them or makes them uncomfortable or angers them in some way. So if that's the case, if you feel like you're not getting any interaction, even though you're being nice, maybe you try to convince them. And that's something that I find myself doing, is trying to convince them that you are a good guy. You're different from the others, right? That you love the location, that you want to keep it there and have it restored so the entity can stay there as long as it wants. And it becomes part of the history and part of the house. And I think that's the best way we can try to be respectful and try to stimulate the environment as much as it allows us to, if we try to relate to them on a basic level. It can be difficult, right? But what ends up happening is impatience is our worst enemy here. I think a lot of the times, if I don't get anything, later on in my paranormal research, I found myself, if I'm not getting anything, I just say flat out, it's okay if you don't want to talk. We don't blame you. Maybe you don't like us. Maybe you don't want us here. This is not a circus. You're definitely have your, your free will, and you definitely choose whether you want to or not. Maybe they are trying to, and the methods that you're using aren't working. So that's why we try to have different tools at our disposal. We try to have EVP devices. We try to use ITC devices. We really have strayed away from the spirit box just because there's so much possibility for contamination, pareidolia, and false positives. But we do try to use white noise and other types of radio sweep devices in minimal, limited ways. We use psychic mediums, okay? Whether you believe in psychic mediums or not, they are more useful than you could possibly imagine when it comes to connecting with spirit. Having an empathic point of view, a medium point of view when it comes to these things. We're not hearing anything physically. We're not getting any interaction on our physical tools. So we need to use metaphysical tools as well, along with everything else, that broaden our spectrum of tools. So we can try to do the best thing we can do when it comes to verifying if the place is haunted, ITC, trying to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. One of our goals is investigating psychic mediums. Can they do what they feel like they can do, right? So you're also investigating not only the location, you're investigating the abilities of our, investigation tactics, which are psychic mediums. So a lot of things are interesting. But on the other side of the spectrum of provoking is flat out being rude, flat out being disrespectful, right? A lot of times, people get impatient and get angry, and they'll start yelling and shouting and sometimes even threatening entities. We'll leave, sometimes, we'll get comments on our YouTube channels, and what they'll say is, well, if you don't say anything, we're just going to leave. And that kind of sounds rude, right? So we're not trying to be rude. We're just saying, hey, hi, Rich. I see you there, buddy. We're just trying to say, hey, we're trying to get interaction, but if you don't say anything, we're just going to leave. So if you don't want us to leave, keep trying. And it's really hard for people to understand where paranormal investigators are coming from, right? They're trying to understand their motives. They're trying to gauge their character through the whole process. Some people are very sensitive when it comes to speaking to the other side, connecting with the other side. A lot of times people are just finding excuses to dislike you on social media, and they're just waiting for you to mess up something. Seems like that's the case a lot of times. But for the people who are just flat out rude, here are the things that we could definitely talk about. If we're not dealing with an entity or a spirit that can do something in the form of negative interaction with you, then you want to be careful, right? A lot of times people will go to a location that has something negative or dark, wanting something to happen for the camera, wanting something to happen for them to validate something. Maybe they just want to piss things off, and maybe they're just bad people. But let's just assume that you're just trying to get some evidence for the camera and your devices. So they'll go to extreme measures sometimes in provoking. There's religious provocation, and then there's flat out, just being rude and trying to infuriate an entity or a spirit just to get a response, like a bully would, right? Sometimes it's almost like a situation where you're in a schoolyard and this bully sees a quiet kid trying to stick to itself, and it goes up there to the kid and tries to bully it to feel powerful. That's how a lot of people who do bad kinds of provoking comes across, right? They don't understand what they're doing. They only see how it makes them feel. It empowers them, but it also really, really harms the person that they're provoking. And if in the situation where we're in different environments and different locations, we definitely want to be careful. We don't want to leave the environment infuriated, angry. The last thing we want is things to attach to ourselves or to surround us, come home, follow us around, and affect the people that are innocent. Okay, because that's what I look out for. Got kids, got a wife, got friends. I don't want them affected by anything that I've done. And in my own spiritual path, I definitely don't want to do anything spiritually that I would regret. So that means don't be a bully, don't be mean to people, don't be a bully, and don't be mean to the spirits. Because there's no difference in there when it comes to respect and regretting what you do to them. Because let's face it, sooner or later, you're going to have to face what you do, and you're going to have to lay your head down the pillow at night and decide whether you can sleep soundly that night, depending on your actions, right? Not for everybody, but for myself. I can only speak for myself. So tonight, what we'll do is we'll try to talk about the fine line between what is considered good provoking, if there is such a thing as good provoking, what's considered as bad provoking, and how we can discern whether what we're doing is good and what's the opposite of that, what we want to stay away from, what we don't want to support when it comes to bad provoking. Okay, so I think that would be a good goal tonight. But the takeaway, and we'll come back to the takeaway, is we want people to understand that despite what your intentions are, we can negatively provoke things based on how they perceive not only your proximity and placement in the location as form as them perceiving as your presence is not wanted, but just the fact that you're trying to speak to them can be something that irritates them, that makes them angry. So I see a lot of comments flooding in from Facebook. I don't know if YouTube's comments are even working. I don't see any. Are we getting any YouTube comments at all?
Yes.
Okay, it's not working for some reason.
Oh, well, on YouTube, yeah, not on the screen, I don't think.
Yeah, let me try to restart it and see if that works. But I apologize for that, guys. Sometimes this restream definitely leaves out some of the social media platforms that we stream to. All right, do you guys want to do some shout outs real quick?
Go ahead, Derek, if you're ready.
Okay. I've got a bunch.
Okay.
On our regular Facebook page, we've got Becky Compton, Brandy Reeder, Josh Bender, Bill Davis. Somebody by the name of Chico shared the stream but has not commented. Daniel Everson, Sandy Griffin, Lawrence Cook, Rowana Ray, Nelson Nouse, Missy's watching, Tracy, I think it's Wynant, and Lynn Meyer. RU Media's page has Sandra Wells, RU Network, Donna Berry, Rich Valdez, Eddie Pence, and Gooseby.
What's up, guys? Thanks for joining us. Who we got over there on YouTube?
Sam Thomas, Buddy, Val, Limelit Girl, Gateway Paranormal, and Travis Poe.
Sweet. All right. So we got enough people to talk about this subject matter, it seems. So has anybody had any comments yet or any viewpoints?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
If you want me to start. Valerie says, do you provoke in your investigations, and why?
Yes, I do. There's definitely been some times where, depending on the lore, let's just say, for the last time I remember definitely provoking, both times I was there, was Prospect Place. Out in the barn, there's a story about a slave hunter that was hung and killed because he was trying to hunt down a certain slave that the landowner was protecting there at the Prospect Place. And if that's true, immediately I take a stance because I'm against slavery, obviously, and I don't think that that's right. So I'm not going to be respectful to the entity at all. I'm not going to go overboard. I'm not going to, be super crazy. But I think in some situations, let's just say you want to get a response from a slave hunter, and let's just assume that the slave hunter knows that we don't like him. He's been listening to the stories from the tour guide. He's been listening to our interactions and opinions about everything. Let's just say he's intelligent and he knows that we don't like him. So why would he interact with us? He's going to stay quiet. That's a possibility. Another possibility is he's just going to come out and be nasty to us right out of the gate. But let's just say it's quiet, nothing's happening. Maybe we bring something in to provoke. Sometimes trigger objects can provoke. Sometimes we bring in a noose. Sometimes we'll bring in an African American investigator or person to come in there and say, hey, what's up? What are you going to do to me? Or we'll talk about Obama being president. It's like, hey, we've had a black president. How does that make you feel? Slavery's over. It's been abolished. We try to do things like that. We know if we come in contact with entities that have a problem with women, we'll use the female investigators to try to do a little bit of provocation, just to see if we get an interaction. So I feel like there's definitely a fine line that we're going to talk about, but there's going to be some dangers and some consequences to that. And the question is, are we willing to face those?
Val also asks, what about leaving an offering as a form of provoking?
Yeah, I don't know. It could provoke, but the intention is not to provoke. The intention is to, be respectful. It's a gesture of respect, for an offering to spirits or the land. It could provoke something. It just could. So, like I stated in my intro, it's hard to say how someone will react to something. Maybe it's just like people. If you offer something as a good gesture out of respect and kindness to somebody, it may make them angry, depending on their mood or how they perceive what you're doing.
Gateway Paranormal said, provoking is a fine line. Asking a spirit to light something up could be considered provoking.
Yep. And one of the takeaways I want people to kind of get out of this narrow-minded box that they feel like what provoking is. If you exist there, if you're there already, I want people to kind of understand, hey, I didn't think about this as much as I initially did, and now I look at it different. That's my goal for tonight. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't, but that's my goal. But I agree with what he says there.
Sam Thomas says, I leave food and water and smoke to Indian grounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tobacco, sage, cedar wood, sweetgrass, those are all things that are good gestures, offerings.
Mm-hmm. And that is it on YouTube.
All right, Derek, have fun with these Facebook comments, buddy.
There's a bunch. We did have Brandon Johnson, Heather Elliott, and Shannon Humphreys jumped on. I'll start way up at the top of the list. A lot of them's just comments, but Lawrence Cook, who was referred to our stream by Brandy Reader, she actually has two people that jumped on that she referred to the stream. He said, I believe spirits will come to you if you're receptive to their presence. I do not think it is necessary to provoke a spirit. Brandy said she had to agree with him. Impatience seems to be what leads to provoking. The provoking that locations ask that you do not do, I call instigating. So see, she's kind of taking it a different way from actually provoking to instigating.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson actually had a question. He said, what about being disrespectful when it is to debunk a specific claim about a location?
What he means by that is, what if trying to debunk something leads to disrespecting a spirit? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. What about using a disrespectful stance or using disrespectful comments to debunk a claim that a location has of a spirit maybe getting aggressive by being disrespected?
I'm not sure if I entirely understand the question, but I think it's a fine line, and you just have to be careful. I think if you kind of give a disclaimer before things get started, okay, I'm sorry if this offends you. This is my intention. Make your intention clear. If you're wrong with, the direction of what you're asking, or if you kind of want to give a couple avenues of possibility with your questioning or your stance, or how you know how you go about interaction or trying to debunk something or question something. I think a little disclaimer, a little bit of options, kind of being clear about what you're trying to do, because I think the more clear and transparent about what you're trying to do is, the more likely they're going to understand where you're coming from, and the less chance there's going to be of something coming out the wrong way, or them perceiving spirits that is perceiving you in the wrong way. Hopefully that answers it. But to go back to those initial comments, is nobody goes to a location, sits there, and just tries not to interact. Investigators a lot of times pay a lot of money. They travel long distances. They deal with a lot of sleep deprivation and hard work. I've never seen someone just go to a location and just sit there without asking any questions. Any questions whatsoever can provoke something. We like to feel confident that we know what's there, but we don't always know what's there. So asking any questions or try to interact with the spirit world in any way has consequence, and it is considered some form of provocation. Okay? So when we use the term provoking, you need to kind of not generalize it in any specific way. Okay? When I say when we go to location and provoke things, we're trying to do certain types of paranormal research. Interface Death in particular is trying to film a paranormal production. A lot of that times, if people are going to watch it, there has to be some inherent value to it. There has to be historical value to it. That has to have some kind of spiritual element attached to it, some type of spiritual exploration attached to it. It's a lot of different things. It's not always black and white. So for someone, to assume that if it was meant to be, it'll happen without, then that's interesting, because when you're investigating, you're trying to get things to manifest in certain ways. So I would like to see what their opinions on how they would address it. I keep going, Derek. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be long-winded here.
Oh, that's all right. I had a comment from Josh, but my internet went down for a second and I lost a bunch of my stuff. It kind of summed up that a lot of people investigating, they want quick, fast, rapid responses. They want stuff to happen right now. So in order to get that to happen, they revert to alternate methods, like faking evidence, doing things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I tried to fix it, guys. There's a delay. I'm gonna leave it on the screen and let me know if you can continue to not hear him. I tried to fix it. All right, just keep on talking.
is the boil on the butt of paranormal investigations.
Go ahead and repeat that for me.
She said, provoking in hopes of getting a negative reaction for the sake of entertainment and proof is the boil on the butt of paranormal investigations.
Yep. Again, our goal tonight is to broaden the definition of provoking and expand the ideal of what provoking is, and try to understand that provoking is not so much black and white. So
Right.
if Vanessa can give some examples of what provoking and not provoking is, that would be great.
Rich Valdez did bring up, he said, I think it's safer to recreate situations, specifically in historical locations, as a trigger situation to gather evidence. It's safer, in my opinion. Which I like
why
that
is
idea.
why is that safer? Like, I guess it would depend on the situation that you're trying to recreate. Like, let's just say, I feel like whatever you do could definitely irritate something, whether you intended it or not, and that's my stance. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily depend on your intention. So let's reiterate here. Let's be clear. It does not depend on what your intent is. What matters is how they perceive what you're doing. Okay? Let me know what you guys think about that. If you try to recreate like an era cue, or you try to stimulate the environment by doing a historical recreation of something, like if you go to Gettysburg and you do if you try to recreate a battle, that could work, but it could provoke something. It could irritate something. It could be taken the wrong way. Okay? If you go into a location and you try to drum up old stuff, you can drum up old things. Sometimes those can be good. Sometimes those can be bad. Sorry, Derek.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I even think, one of the locations that we went to, one of the spirits, I believe, that didn't even like cuss words. And I think, that was, it wasn't like an intentional provoking, but I don't remember. What location was that? Do you remember?
The Anchorage.
Yeah. But I kind of like see everybody's opinion, and I just don't, when I think of provoking, you brought in my, intake on it, but I always thought provoking was negative. You're going to do something negative to get, a bad reaction. But I see now, when you open up the word more of just even little things that you wouldn't think that was provoking, that you would be.
Yeah, like for example, Emma comes in and says, "Hey mom, I got a question." Depending on your mood, you may be like, "What's up, hon?" Or get away from me, you're pissing me off. It depends.
Right, sure.
So I feel like that can happen at any point during any investigation. There is no safe way to interact with anything.
Right.
That's my point. So how, maybe what I want to talk about is how can we lessen the possibility that those bad things will happen, those bad interactions will happen. Because for someone to say that they have a 100% effective way of not provoking anything in a negative way, I would like to hear what that is. So again, my goal for tonight is for you guys to open your minds a little bit more about how you think you're affecting your environment, how you're trying to interact with entities and spirits. Do you always feel like there's always a little risk out there? Because, I feel like there is, but I think that there's a way to try to be respectful. And also, you have an audience. You have people watching your videos. You have people watching your live streams. They can perceive what you're doing as provoking, but the spirits may not perceive it as you provoking. So we're just dealing with, varying points of view, opinions, and moods.
Do you have anything, Derek? I have a comment.
I've got couple new viewers. Carrie Barbarick is on RU Media. Ken Ace Taylor has joined on RU Media. And then I've had a couple comments fly in here. Let's see. Rowana Ray said, I've seen people visit my location and the spirits immediately do not like them due to rude provoking they have done in the past. So apparently she owns a haunted location and she experiences
the
right out of
101
the
Para
gate.
Cafe.
Okay, gotcha. And then let's see. Bill Davis said, I think Justin just goes with the opposite of whatever I say, and it just makes him look so smart.
I'm not trying to.
Exactly.
What did he say? What did he say? That
I'm trying to. I didn't catch what he said. Oh, he's been talking about me losing audio and everything.
Yeah, when I go to your full screen, I had to do some adjustments because there were some changes in the NDI sources. So I just quit going to your screen because I don't think you could change them while you're live.
Yeah. Now, Brandy Reeder says an example of ill intent provoking. Someone has hung themselves, and you tell them that they were stupid for what they did and call them names. That's an example she would give of ill provoking.
Well, yeah, that's pretty clear cut. That's definitely being disrespectful.
After that, that's what everybody down the board has agreed with, is that's kind of like territory that is not good. Personally, I can say that, I don't get into the hardcore like you see on TV and on some of the other videos where people screaming and yelling and going crazy and, summons in the devil and jumping up and down and stuff like that. But I have caught myself in the past one-on-one and all this stuff just shuts down right. You think you're getting somewhere. I'll wait a little while, and if it doesn't come back or pick back up, I've raised my voice and gotten agitated, not really mad, but just raised my voice in a manner to say, hey, look, I know you're here. Come back here and talk to me. Don't run away. I want you're communicating. I want answers. I'm not here to play games, and I've never gotten anything respond to that kind of actions.
Yeah, and the reason is because we're human. We go far places, spend lots of money, and we expect this. Mm-hmm. When we go to McDonald's, we order a number one, we expect a Big Mac, a fry, and whatever you have to drink. When you go to a haunted location, they have on their website most haunted place you'll ever go to. You walk in, you hand them $500, and you're sitting there, and crickets are chirping for hours and hours and hours. You're not getting your number one. So then you start saying, well, maybe if I do this, they'll say something, or maybe if I do this, they'll do something. Most people just don't say, well, if they like me, they'll talk to me, or if this was meant to happen, it'll happen. That usually never ever happens. And after years of doing that, you'll just do human things. I think you were kind of talking about sometimes your character will come out like sometimes you feel like you are a good person, you feel like you're trying to be respectful, but you just sometimes you don't end up being, because you're tired, you're sleep deprived, you've been there for hours, and sometimes the worst will come out in you when you're not really a bad person. And I think there's room for a lot of reflection and a lot of growth for me personally, and I think everybody should constantly do this. I think everybody should be constantly trying to check themselves and take a step back and good look, because what we do is we let people peer review our stuff. We let people comment on our stuff. Sometimes they're like, like Sandy Griffin, for example, or Griffith, sorry, always mess up that last name. She says that we're one of the most respectful teams to spirits that she's ever seen. But we may get somebody else that come on our channel or videos saying, you guys are assholes. Okay? So there's always a varying spectrum of opinion on how people perceive who you are. Maybe they're only looking for certain things. Maybe they only see the bad. Maybe the people only see the good. So you're dealing with a lot of human nature. Rich Valdez throws up a definition. Learn to pronounce, stimulate, or give rise a reaction or emotion, typically a strong or unwelcome one, is someone. That is what the word means. Now, in a historical location, along with research of the haunt or what's happened, I believe trigger situations can and should be used. But as above provocation at the residential location, you have to keep in mind that the people leaving there will then be left with a potential worse situation than before you arrived to help them, which is very true. So, Rich, please give an example of something that you will recreate, so we can kind of, I don't want to generalize that. I want to talk about in depth what you're trying to recreate. Historical with research of the haunt of what's happened. I believe trigger situations should be used. Like, I think if you're in a saloon and you recreate someone getting shot, that can provoke something. If you're recreating anything, entities can be negatively provoked in that way. I think it's still possible, whether you're intending to or not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to do a couple more shout outs. Kasha, Supernatural Lost Adventures, and Dan. And real quick, I'll just read Supernatural's Lost Adventures comment. I provoke by raising my voice and claiming those spirits are around when we don't get any activity. Never been in a situation where I have provoked and got responses, so will continue until I get evidence.
Yeah, a lot of times that we prioritize evidence over whether we piss anybody off. And there's the fine line. It's a delicate situation, I mean, let's just face it. We're trying, interface death, we're going to talk about just us. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. We are trying to find answers. We are trying to be respectful. We are trying to lead by example. We're trying to go down a spiritual path that is good. We're trying to entertain. We're trying to educate. We're trying to do all these things. It's impossible to do all those things perfectly. It's impossible to be perfect. It's impossible to always assume that we're never ever going to piss a spirit off or be viewed and perceived as a bad person or someone with bad intention. It just really depends. So, but I do think that there is a rule of thumb. There is what's going too far. What does the chat think about that statement right there? Do you feel like what you're doing is being scrutinized a lot? Like, do you feel like a lot of those people may not put out productions of what they do? Like, are they aware of watching themselves on video and having people interact with what they do? Because that's a really good exercise to do.
William Bennett said, doctors during surgery do not throw tools, equipment, or badmouth the person on the table, no matter the situation or results. Professionalism is what divides those who are in it to do serious research and those who just go to a haunted house.
Yeah, you definitely want to be professional or present yourself in a professional manner if you want to be taken seriously.
Supernatural Lost Adventures also asks, so is provoking bad or good, or does it depend on the situation?
Good question. That's the question of the show. So it can be good. It can be bad. It could be both. And I think it just depends on not only the situation, but how people will perceive the particular situation. I think people just being in a haunted location, talking to ghosts, someone could say, why do people do that? That's bad. Another person can come along and be like, oh, they're doing God's work. They're doing good work. That's good. So I think that it not only depends on the location and it not only depends on the situation, it depends on the person observing the situation, right? Because everybody has an opinion, everybody has a take on it. But again, the takeaway from the show is to try to broaden your perception of what provoking is. Go ahead with Rich's comment, Derek.
Okay. Before I read it, Misty Pearl, Billy Gerber joined on RU Media, and Heidi Johnston joined on the regular Facebook page. Pretty much everybody's saying they're pounding respect. You know, it's important. There was one before Rich's. I'm trying to find it again. Oh, Misty Pearl said demanding anything from a spirit is wrong in her opinion. Rich said, I recreated a judgment passed down in Green Cove courtroom as a judge, with historical word for word of what was said by the lawyers and the judge's judgment. We got the response of, but I'm innocent. This person was later on found to be innocent of the charges when the true murderer was found months later.
Okay. So, it's Rich. Is it different? Like, is it different to recreate that, or just to ask, "Hey, are you innocent? Did you do this?" Like, what's the difference between those two approaches? Just asking the question, or recreating it. Now, my answer to my own question would be, sometimes you got to connect with energy, and in order to connect with energy, you have to tap into it. A lot of it's psychokinetic, so if you're trying to tap into a thought form or tap into an energy, recreating it will bring you there. Just asking a question may not bring you there. So I think that's the difference. I don't think there's any difference in provocation, though. I don't think that's a good example. That's not what quite I'm looking for examples to express different viewpoints there. Go ahead, Derek.
Brandy Reader just said, I think it depends on the spirit that you're trying to communicate with as well. I do not think that their personalities change once they pass from when they were living. We all communicate differently.
I think that definitely is the case. Sometimes energies and entities don't change. Sometimes they do change. I think more times than not that they stay the same. I think when there's a change, the energy shifts. My view on ghosts and spirits is not like most people's. I think 99.9% of what we're dealing with is not the human soul at all. I think it's a thought form. I think it's a fragment and facet of a psychokinetic manifestation that splinters off of people's, psyches when they die. I think there could be infinite amounts of these and imprinted everywhere. It could happen while you're alive. It can happen when you die. At any time. But it can become very strange. Ghosts are very strange things to understand. So that's just a theory. That's, based on experience. I think that's definitely more so than not. I think they're stuck in a certain frame of mind. They're stuck in a certain personality. But I have heard of entities changing their moods and changing their personalities and, the way they seem to be perceived.
Well, Tracy Wayant said, I think spirits can be emotionally provoked as well, bringing thoughts and feelings back to them that they had when they were alive.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of interesting to think of it that way. And then Rich just answered back. He said, it gave the spirit a chance to get his message across. Knowing this spirit was innocent, we encouraged him to go be with his ancestors.
Okay. I guess he doesn't understand what I'm asking, which is fine. It can, sometimes what I ask can be complicated.
Nuh-uh. Sorry.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I'm trying, what I'm trying to ask, Rich, is what is different? What is his example of trying to get evidence or trying to get spirit interaction? How does that differ from other things, like maybe asking if they will respond? What's the difference between the reenactment and just flat out asking? Is flat out asking provocative, or is recreating provocative? Is it or is not? And depending whether he thinks if it is or it is not, why? That's what I'm asking. Because in my opinion, whether you recreate it or just flat out ask, they both can be provoking. It just depends. I don't think, I'm trying to find an example where one would be better than the other. I think there's, a situation where one would be better than the other. And I'm trying to find out what that is.
Actually, if you think about it, I guess when we're investigating and we're verbally investigating a location, in one way, it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to be provoking because everybody's different. If you're standing there asking a bunch of dumb questions, like how old are you? Are you a male or female? What year were you born? Do you know where you are? The standard list of stuff that, they may look at that as provoking because they may think, well, they're coming in here asking me the same thing I hear every day, 365. This is dumb, But then if you come in and ask and try to get personal with it and be like, okay, I understand what was supposed to have happened to you. Do you want to tell me a story as to why you might have done this? Why might this have happened? And try to get in depth with it. That's provoking also, because now you're getting into their personal feelings and their personal lives that they used to live. So I think there's a strange facet as to how you can actually define provocation. But most everybody thinks provocation is walking into a place, screaming and yelling, throwing stuff, threatening Satan, the devil, and all this stuff, because that's what they see on TV. But it's really not. I mean, you can walk in and just ask a simple question and set somebody off in real life. So you walk into a haunted home or a haunted location, ask a simple question that you think in your mind is perfectly fine, and it could set that spirit off.
Yes, very true. I agree with that. Josh Bender said show some respect, and it kind of made me think of what's important. I think one of the best things you could possibly do is to try to establish respect. What's up, Deb? Try to establish respect with what could be there, if that's possible. So before you go into the investigation, maybe you say it. Maybe you project it with your energy. Maybe you verbally say it. It just depends on how you want to do it. But I think once you gain the respect and build the respect of what's there, what you may do to elicit a response can be perceived in a controlled way. Okay? Maybe if me and Jess just never met before, and I asked her a very personal question, like you were saying, Derek, she may be offended by it. But since me and Jess are very close friends, and I ask her a personal question, she may not be offended by it at all. She may be very comfortable with telling me what the answer to the question is. So I think that's something that I definitely want to work into this conversation, is maybe the best thing to do is to form some type of respect with whatever's there. And that may take longer than we have. So maybe for the people who own properties that people allow in to investigate, there's a lot of responsibility there. Okay? We want to help build revenue to keep the place going and to restore the place. So we allow people to come in with money to do paranormal research. A lot of times we try to vet them out. We try to say, oh, they're a good group. They seem like they're good. But we're not there all the time watching what they do. So they may do things against what you feel is right or respectful. So it can become very complex and very hard to control. So one group can come into a location and totally piss off the spirits, and then 10 really good, respectful groups can come in right after them and get nothing because of that one group. Okay, so the process of building respect with the location and entities has to start all over again. So that's another factor. But I feel like in order to get the most perfect scenario is to be at that location multiple times, to show beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are there for good reasons, that you want the best for them, And I do say a lot, if you don't want to communicate, that's perfectly fine and we understand. And that's why I say that in our videos, because they're not circus animals. They're not there to do our bidding every time we ask. They're just like us. So that's, you guys probably remember me saying a lot during our investigations. If you don't want to say anything, we understand. We get it. You don't have to. And I think that's another way to either build respect just by them saying, I'm just waiting for you to shut up and leave so I can go on about my business. And I can respect that,
Somebody, I don't know if it was on YouTube or if it was on Facebook that showed up on the screen. And I agreed 100%. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know who said it, but it was like, treat them as they were living and right in front of you today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Like, if somebody would be starting to act like ill towards them or trying to, negative provoke somebody, like, I would have to walk away. Like, I wouldn't want to be around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just think that there's a fine line. There's a very fine line. I think there's a lot of varying opinions, and I definitely felt that a lot of people would chime in and give their opinions, and I love that, and I appreciate everybody that's commented on this live stream, because in order to deliver, media and paranormal research that will appeal to everyone, I need to have my finger on the pulse of the paranormal community, and this is a huge thing. I'm actually surprised that it took me this long of a time to bring this up. So yeah, it's been an hour. Is there anybody else or anybody else asking questions or anything else that we didn't address in the comments?
Deb Snyder joined probably about 10 minutes ago, and so did John Ward. Really no. Brandy Reeder's been commenting a lot. She said, I would lean towards something that was more traumatic. And if you're reenacting that specific event, depending if their story hasn't been told accurately and they have tried to tell their story or the traumatic event has been told numerous times. Let's see. Tracy said, provoking does not necessarily have to be bad, but rather eliciting a response, which is what you are after. So it could be anything along the spectrum, which is kind of what I went for earlier.
Yep.
It's just fine. You have to be able to find the fine line between provoking and doing it professional and respectful, and provoking and doing it unprofessional and disrespectful. Where do you draw that line?
And to put a stamp on that, Derek, is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very subjective thing when you talk about what is respectful and what is not. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Derek, for helping me. There was quite a bit of people coming in. That this was a very interactive show tonight. And John says, I'm not for or against it. Really depends on the location. Yeah, rewatch the show, John, and you'll probably find a lot of people agreeing with that. But thanks, guys. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you all for joining in. I'm really appreciative of everybody's feedback, and it definitely matters to me whether you agree with me or not, or you like me or not. It's all valuable to me. But I think the takeaway is building the respect of a location and getting that respect back, despite whatever your methodology or your process is. That's irrelevant. I think once you establish respect and feel like you have that respect, your methods and processes of getting responses, of getting interactions can be broader. You can feel confident that you're not going to provoke them in a negative way. Is provoking good or bad? There is no yes or no question or response or answer to that question. It depends, right? Just like we were talking about on the show, it depends. So you have to analyze each situation and determine whether it is good or bad or not. If you feel like yourself, your group, friends, family could be in possible danger by doing what you're doing, you need to evaluate that. You need to assess that. So I want to leave it up onto you folks to determine whether you feel that it is, because ultimately you're the one having to deal with it. You don't need to listen to some jerk on the internet up on his soapbox telling you what's good, what's bad, what's right or wrong. But hopefully you had some takeaways from this, guys. And like I said, I appreciate you tuning in very much. If you like what you see and you definitely want to check out how we do things, what we do, you can go to interfacedeath.net. All these links are in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out Justin Brown Paranormal Research on Facebook, and Interface Death is also on Facebook. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. If you're watching on Facebook, you can check us out on YouTube. Subscribe. It's completely free. It would help us out a lot. You can support us through patreon.com, which we will get in more depth here in a moment. If you want to support us but not use Patreon, if you don't like that, we have a PayPal for donations and support there on the screen. And you can also join us on Discord at the link in the description. If you're on Facebook, you can join our paranormal group called United Paranormal Society on Facebook. Just send in a join request and we'll accept you. We talk about everything paranormal, UFOs, cryptozoology, everything. We post memes, jokes, stories, everything under the paranormal umbrella we do. Our patrons, they're the ones that support this. They're the ones that bring this content to you free and make sure that it's here to stay and to financially reach goals like camera equipment, all types of stuff that we do in the paranormal media realm. So people like Clay Borman, Katie Turner, Archie Murphy, Scotty Fox, Casey Schreiner, Jessica Bias, Paranormal Reporter, Heather Elliott, Joe Vitale, The Ghost Guild, Kelly McConkie, Tony Filosi, Betty Kegley, and the Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers. Please extend your thanks to them for their support. They're the ones that help vote on these show topics. They're listed as producers in our video documentaries. And, we can't do it without them. So if you want to support us that way, you can. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys for joining me. Tomorrow night on Necromancer, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking to Corey and Jen Heinzen. They are new owners of the house that inspired the Conjuring films. So if you want to listen to our interview with Corey and Jen tomorrow night on the Necromancer live show Facebook page, on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope, you can watch us talk to somebody that's probably been getting blown up and had some crazy stuff going on here lately. There's been a lot of media attention and a lot of attention from the paranormal community since they bought the house. So I would love to see you guys there. Stick around for some video promotions. If you have not seen them, we got a couple things from Paranormal Quest coming. And there's a couple shows that we promote, and we have some upcoming films as well. But you are in my heart. I love you all very much. We'll see you next time. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good. Dead light. For those who aren't afraid to see what lurks in the night.
On Saturday, November 30th, take your journey into the supernatural into one of Ohio's most wicked jails. Built in 1889, the old Licking County Jail was home to its fair share of dangerous inmates, leading to 14 inmate deaths as well as 4 sheriffs. These violent deaths inevitably led to the closure of the jail in 1987. Join us for a night of history and an overnight ghost hunt you'll never forget. Your journey awaits.
Something I picked up prior on the photos that I've seen, I keep seeing a badge. It feels like some kind of tightness in the chest. So it feels like he possibly could have passed away from heart or lung issues, but I don't know if he was an officer here or some kind of badge. I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, and it's just so overwhelming. It's a lot of
Whoa. My camera just stopped. I just got a complete shutdown of my equipment.
My main story when I first started here, that's where I saw the mass, was in the basement doorway.
Showers in prisons feel weird. More happened in there than people getting clean.
Doesn't matter what floor you're on, what room you're in, you can get interaction. This is one of the most haunted locations that I've been to.
Just walk out of your cell, I'd like to see you. What the fuck was that?
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.